Okay, I've got a lot of material here I want to present. This is Sasquatch research number 25 on the subject of symbology. I present this material as a theory, nothing more than a theory. I consider it to be plausible, but it may not be scientifically acceptable as an ideal to many people. But I'm going to present it anyways because I feel it needs to be presented. Let's take a look at the word Sasquatch. The term Sasquatch is an anglicized derivative of the word Sasquatch, which means wild man in a Salish Native American language. Salish language was the language of the Flathead Indian Nation, which is typically associated with the Pacific Northwest. However, the nation itself defined itself as also living entirely east of the Continental Divide per their historical records. So you can see that this language was actually prevalent in a good portion of the United States. Here is an example of the various dialects of the Salishan language that cover the entire northwestern Canada and Pacific Northwest. It is a great amount of geographic territory and various derivatives of that language. Here's an example of written language. The Native American language is limited per historical records. However, various forms of symbolism were used among the many tribes. As you can see, they had symbols here representing concepts that were universally understood by their people. In ancient people, the ancestors of Native Americans are believed to have traveled across the Bering Strait by some estimates as far back as 20,000 years ago. You research this concept of the Bering Strait crossing online and you get various theories about when these crossings supposedly occurred, some as soon as 2,000 years ago, and by some estimates it goes back tens of thousands of years. I use the largest one I was able to find in this example. Written language in the Asian and European continent has a long history, dating back thousands of years BC. Cultures such as the Sumerians, Egyptians, Phoenicians, Chinese, Japanese, Hebrew, and Arabic have some form of written language. The Vedic hymns circulated throughout Asia are estimated to have been written and compiled as much as 10,000 years BC. Much of the early written languages consisted of symbols to convey meaning and concepts universally understood by those using them. These symbols eventually evolved into the alphabet, which formed the core structure of words and further expanded the written language. The modern alphabet at its origin, however, began with symbolism. Here's an example of the Greek alphabet, and you can see that many of these letters are still in existence even in the English language and the various other alphabets of the different languages around the world. Here's an example of the Phoenician written language, 1400 BC. Once again, you can see common threads of the same symbols used in our modern English alphabet as well as many other cultures. Here's an example of the Old English and Anglo-Saxon translation of the ancient runes, which is believed to have later formed the basis of the English alphabet. Once again, you'll see some common thread here of some of the symbols. Here is the Hungarian runes, a variant of the Germanic languages, and these symbols were an early formation of the Hungarian written alphabet and language. Once again, you see the common thread of some of the symbols that are pretty commonly used, not just in language, but for other meanings as in use today. And here's the one that I'll probably reference the most here in this presentation. These are the original Germanic runes and their meanings. You may recognize some of these symbols still in use today. With this understanding, it's not unreasonable to assume that although many of the forms of ancient written language have been passed down or deciphered over the centuries, there still may be dialects of languages not understood. One could also presume that there may be many forms of symbolic languages lost, as the people behind such languages merged or were conquered by other cultures or perished. One could also take one further step and presume that it is possible that a symbolic language could have possibly existed that was never written down, but instead remained in use as physical universe symbols between its people. Such languages could be as subtle as a pile of stones left along a trail to pass along a message to those who understood the symbol to know that someone from their tribe had passed that way, and their number, as an example. Or a blaze on a tree indicating a trail to follow through the woods. Although symbols can often be the same or similar in different cultures and languages, they often have different meanings. Isolating the source of that meaning is crucial to understanding the language and its people. In my research in the forest of late, I've started to draw a connection to this concept and began to form a rough theory of sorts. I've encountered many formations in the woods that have three distinguishing characteristics. One, they appear to repeat themselves in many areas of the forest. Two, they occur so often that it leads me to believe that they are more than just natural coincidental occurrences. Three, they appear to be a communication in symbolism of some form. Here's an example of an X pattern I've shown you in several of my videos. Here is a symbol right adjacent to it of a Native American symbol that was commonly used, and it had a original meaning of the word center, or that concept. Here's the same symbol in the Phoenician language. I found no other reference to it other than it represented the letter T, or Ta. Here is one of the translations of the rune of this symbol, or a similarity of a rune, and this one meant Nied, it meant necessity. Here's another variation of that rune, Gifu, and it meant gift. Here's another translation of that rune in another language, and it was Nafis, and it actually defines out to not this, or literally need fire or necessity. And the esoteric definitions of this was constraint or friction. Gibo, another version of this rune, also translates to the word gift or generosity. Here's an X pattern in the forest. Alright, so moving on, here is a formation of a teepee structure. You can see a couple of photos. These may not be the best examples of this. I will try to present more of these later on. Here is the delta symbol. You've probably seen that a lot in our culture and used by various people. It is part of the Greek alphabet, and it is the equivalent of the letter D in English. And it also comes from the Phoenician word dalesh, meaning tent door or opening. Here's lambda. It's the 11th letter in the Greek alphabet. It has many meanings, including being a reference point in the human skull. Here's the symbol for teepee from the Native American language, and it actually meant temporary home. And of course the Masonic version of the triangle as the all-seeing eye. Here's another example of a teepee structure in the woods. And here are some videos here quickly of some of the teepee structures that I filmed in my other presentations. I'll let you take a look at that. Okay, moving on. Here is an arch symbol taken from a photograph. This one actually, you can see, if you examine the photo carefully, you'll see multiple arches in this shot. There's actually two of them. In the runes, there's a variation of the original Germanic rune of Urzuz, meaning reward, wealth, or nourishment. Another translation, meant power. And then of course the symbol of the arch, as known today, has a symbolic meaning of openings, passageways, and initiations. We're told that these arches occur naturally in nature, but it could have been created by another culture or a symbol for these people. We don't know. Here's some example of videos of arches that I am presenting here, so you can take a look at some of these. Okay, moving on. Take a look at this configuration of the wood here. This is a formation I originally brushed off as just being a branch that fell down, but I've seen this same repeated pattern many times where you have a V branch and another one wedged in there and broken off in a short pattern. The symbol in the runes that is similar to this is Iola, and it meant protection. There's a translation of an English rune poem, or Anglo-Saxon rune poem, that loosely translates, "The elk flower usually lives in the wetlands, growing in the water. It wounds severely, staining with blood any man who makes a grab at it." This was taken from a type of flower that was in existence that was apparently barbed and had quite a reference point. It also is called algies. And of course this is a tree break. Take a look at this symbol legu, which translates into water into English runes. It also has, in the Proto-Germanic, this rune is also called legus, which translates to the word water or lake. Coincidentally, this break that I'm showing here was pointing towards a lake. When I walked near one lake, there were several of these pointing towards the water. Could there be a connection? I don't know. In Old Icelandic, there's a rune poem about legus, which translates to water is eddying stream and broad geyser and land of the fish. So I would suggest the following concepts for your review. 1. Could there be beings or people living in the woods in secrecy and communicating with each other through a form of symbolism? Be it Sasquatch, the wild men, or even a Native American tribe that perfected the art of clandestine existence so many thousands of years before modern civilization that they've continued to endure in secrecy. Could these oddities of the forest, such as arches, tree break structures, and the like, be a form of rudimentary language that is used by these people, and perhaps they've been attempting to communicate but we have not understood? And finally, if these oddities in nature are indeed a form of obscure symbology, could it possibly be some form of test or ancient rite of passage which is occurring in their culture, which we are merely seeing fragments of some other complete system? Or, from a reverse perspective, could the ancient runes and symbols of old have originated from observations by people of the woods and various terrains across their regions? I suppose no one will really know this for certain. Perhaps it's a combination of both. But now it would seem that it remains a riddle until further research is done to substantiate the theory either way. However, I am of the belief that there must be some cause for these anomalies in the forest, and I find it hard to believe that they are all natural occurrences from tree falls, branches falling from age, and the impact of storms. The main reason for this is that they appear far too frequently to be brushed aside as mere coincidental natural occurrences. I've witnessed too many branches placed neatly into a teepee structure, delta or lambda, in the middle of the woods, and far too many sapling and entire full-grown tree arches which are bent firmly over like a tension spring and affixed into the ground in some fashion. I've witnessed too many times the algies and legus formation patterns in vastly different ends of the same woods to not notice the frequency and same consistent pattern. There are several others which I've not mentioned in this presentation. Now that I've become more aware of these symbolic patterns in the woods and have defined a loose classification of the phenomena, I intend to continue this research trail and see where it leads. Perhaps it will be a dead end, but nevertheless, it is a data trail that I've not seen any previous researcher travel down, and so we'll explore it further. Sorry if this sounded pretty quick today, but I was pressed for time, trying to keep it under 15 minutes. Thank you for watching. Please review the material I've presented here, probably at your own leisure. And once again, if you like my video, please click like and also share it with others, as well as place any comments that you feel necessary to make. Thanks a lot for watching.